Hi everybody, this is Rick here in my studio. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Rick Surowicz Watercolor. At any time during the video, you can click on the link in the lower right hand corner to subscribe to my channel. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to learn more about my YouTube videos, my self-paced courses, or my online instruction, you can click on the links that appear at the end of the video. This is the setup that I'll be working with. This is going to be my painting bell tower. And this is a small format for me. I usually work quarter sheet to full sheet. This is an 8x10. It's a portrait orientation. And a lot of simple shapes in the reference photo. You've got the big tree here. You got this foreground area here, a foliage, a little tree here, a rooftop, and you have this bell tower. And one of the things I've already done is gone ahead and I masked some of the drawing using both a frisket and liquid masking fluid. And that's going to allow me to make some very quick, large shapes and brush strokes without having to worry too much about maintaining that edge. So what I did is I've already done this, I applied 2-inch tape over this bell tower, and then I cut around it with a knife, peeled off the excess. So now this area here is protected as I come in with a big wash. I've also taken some liquid mask and put in some branches so I can be free with a wash, not have to try and paint around washes, maintain my light values. And I've also splattered a little bit of liquid masking fluid to give me a little bit of texture. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get to painting here. And I'm going to start with a simple sky wash. It's going to be, the farthest back or area back in my composition, the sky in the background. And I'm going to take a fairly large wash brush, and I'm going to take some cerulean blue. This is just going to be light sky. And I'm going to take a little raw sienna, just a touch of raw sienna, add to that. And I use a PB36 pigment in my cerulean blue, so it doesn't really turn too green on me. If you're using a PB35, it can tend to turn green on you. So be aware of that. You may not have the success I have at making a somewhat moving towards a semi-neutral blue. It's not really semi-neutral, but it's a toned down blue without turning it green. So you can see I can just go right over top of that bell tower because I've already masked that off with a frisket. And I'm going to bring this sky tone down in the background, and because the trees are going to be overlapping this. And this is really going to be about my lightest value. So I can paint right over this. And I'm bringing that down to the roof line. This may actually go a little bit past the top of that. Just bring it down to there. So now, one of the things I'm going to do while this is wet, I'm going to continue that wash a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of sap green to this. Maybe a little cobalt blue. And I'm going to bring over some hands of yellow. But I'm going to add just a touch of a rose madder to this. I don't want it to be quite as bright. So that using that complement is going to tone that down. And maybe a little more blue. I want this to be a cooler, kind of a yellow-green, but more towards a neutral. So what I'm going to do here is we have this tree. Now remember, I've kind of put some splatter in here with my masking fluid, so there's going to be some little bit of texture that I'm going to be able to lift out and put some bright tones on it. So I'm painting this tree in the foreground. And it's hard to come back later on and get the lighter tones if you've already painted something dark on top. And I'm going to go a little thicker with this foliage. And Let's see. A little more blue in that. And a little more red. Gray that down a little bit. Bring some of that up into here. This is still wet. I don't have a problem doing that. And I'm going to actually, I want to get a little darker value. I'm going to bring some ultramarine blue, a little more red because I don't want this to get too bright. Let's see. Move more towards a middle value. Pull out a little Viridian. Maybe some alizarin crimson. Drop a little of that in there. Like the splatter when I paint. I'll come back and do a little bit of that when that's dry so I can get a little more texture out of it. And now I'm going to pick up the excess moisture I have in my page. And let's see, this is going to overlap. I'll paint a little of that in when it's masking's off. And I think that's pretty much, let's get this shape here. That's where I'm going to stop, and I'm going to give this a dry. Okay, so that's dry. I'm going to take a little smaller brush. This is a 6 round brush. I'm going to take a little of that Viridian. Add a little bit of ultramarine blue to it. And I'm going to add some alizarin crimson. So I'm going to move that more towards neutral. And take a little moisture off my brush. Got this evergreen back here. Just want to give a suggestion of that sitting back here. It's not too strong. I could have put this in. I thought about doing this when it was wet and have more of a soft edge on it and feel a little more in the distance. But it's subtle enough that it feels set back. So now I'm going to take I'll take my 1/2 inch flat brush. I'm going to use my 1 inch flat brush, but I think I'll use my 1/2 inch flat brush. And I have some sap green, a little gamboge over here, maybe even a little raw sienna. Over here, this is a royal blue. This is a Holbein royal blue. It's pretty dark color. I'm going to add a little bit of alizarin, bring in some of that green. And we'll start with this kind of a mixture here. Let's see. So I have this big tree up here. So I'm using a 1 inch flat brush. Get a little bit of texture in. This is going all the way off the page. So more of a damp brush. Get it so I get a little bit of a broken edge as I paint this. A few of these, the branch, there's kind of bare in some of those sections, and this kind of hangs out a little bit. So this is why I like using the frisket that I have here, because now I can be pretty free with my brush and my textures, and I don't have to worry about trying to do what I'm doing here, creating these textures, and keeping a straight edge on the structure. I don't have to worry about that. Let's get a little bit of a darker tone in here. A little bit of a darker value here behind this structure to create a little more contrast. Now here I have to worry about the rooftop, the edge there, because that's not masked, and I want to maintain a good edge. So I'm just going to paint around that. Come down here. I'm bringing in a nice dark value. This is it's dark, but it's very neutral. It's a semi-neutral, and I could put a little more red in it, and a little bit more of a complement. But I think what I've done with a neutral will work pretty good. So now I've got this roof, the edge of the roof there, and I want to show a little bit of this light yellow green coming through to show that there's some foliage there from this foreground tree. And at the same time, I'm going to change a little bit because there's another, get the impression there's another tree back here, and we're going to keep it pretty simple. Change the color a little bit, it's a little warmer in there. So now, let's see, I think I can mix out of this here. I'm going to take a little of my alizarin crimson and a little bit of royal or ultramarine blue maybe. I'm getting pretty gray. I want this to lean more towards a red. Got a little bit more pigment in there. I'm going to mix a little bit of a gold tone over here, a semi-neutral gold. And I'm going to start painting actually, I'm going to dry this because I'm going to paint this rooftop edge, and I want it to be a clean edge. And these are damp around here, and I could get some backwash. So I'll be able to put down a good wash. So let me dry this, and I'm going to start to paint in the rooftop. All right, we should be good there. And I'm going to use my flat brush. We'll go with this here. Take some moisture off my brush. I get a little bit of a broken edge leading into the foliage. So I need to try and maintain texture. I'm getting a little darker over here because I still want it to look like there's foliage in front of it. This light yellow-green foliage is in front of the darker rooftop. So I need to give the suggestion that there is that texture there, and at the same time try and develop that edge. So I'm using the belly of the brush, just dragging and pushing it. It's a damp brush. I'm using, mostly the belly there of the brush. Get a little darker. I don't want it to be so one-dimensional. All right, so we go along here. Still, I'm giving the suggestion of broken edges because of the foliage that's in front of it. And I'm maybe putting a little more of the foliage than what's there, but I want to make it a little more evident than what it is in some of those areas. So here we get the roof line here. Okay, so I'm going to actually take a little bit of this, add a little more water to it, and I'm going to splatter a little bit of that. I always like to throw paint. A little more maybe. Tap it on the back of my hand. And I left this kind of open. I'm going to put a little of this other green in here. I need to give a little bit more volume to this here in the foreground. So I'm going to come in with a little slightly more towards a middle value, maybe a little brighter, just to create another plane here of foliage. And let's splatter a little of that. Alright, so as I look at this, I feel I need to go a little darker in some spots. I'm going to take some of that sap green, that royal blue, a little more alizarin crimson, and just feel I need to be a little darker value-wise. And it wouldn't make sense to me to have this dark value here and then have some of that coming out on this side too. It looks like you start to wonder why didn't it come out over here. So I'm going to get a little bit more, create a little better balance. That's not bad there. Okay. And I think I'll just go ahead and I'll dry this. Okay, so that's dry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off my frisket that I have on my bell power. So I just take a little knife and just lift this up carefully. Start to tear a little. So just into a couple pieces. There's one piece when I applied it. And there we go. So now I have that frisket removed, and the masking fluid I'm still going to leave down there for the moment and I'll remove it shortly. And but what I need to do is I'm going to clean my palette, and I actually could have saved a little bit of that for what I'm about to do, but this will work just fine. So I'm going to take a little sap green. I don't need a lot. Some royal blue. And you'll see why I say I should have just saved that. And now I'm just going to put in the foliage, the suggestion of the foliage behind there. There's a bit of a shadow on there, and I painted it green. I'm gonna take that off with the tissue, and I think that'll work, what we've got there. And now I'm going to give that a quick dry because I'm going to be painting right alongside of that. Okay, so I dried that and I cleaned my palette. I'll take a little bit of raw sienna, like a 6 round brush here. Let's see, get a little of my mauve out. Mix those together just to give this a little bit more of a neutral. And this is going to be just a warm tone that I'm putting in here. I've got light bouncing off the ground up. So the underside of some of these, rather than being a cool shadow, is going to be a bit more of a warm underside. I'm going to leave that white there. Okay, so I should just brought that all the way up. All right. So now I'm going to take this mauve. I'm actually going to take a little cobalt blue. I want this still to be warm. I'm painting I'm going to paint this rooftop. It's kind of a gray. And a little more blue to that. Let some colors mingle here on the page. A little bit of warm, a little bit of cool. That's pretty good. So now I'm going to lean with this violet and this blue I have over here. And put just a light wash on here. So there's no bright light hitting that. There's a little bit here and there. I'm going to leave a little bit of the few panels. Just a touch of a highlight on it. So I'm going to go horizontal with a few of these brush marks. And that's probably all I'm going to do at the moment while this is wet there. And we get a little like turquoise. It's kind of like a, I don't know if it's like a copper rod that's corroded, but put a little of that in there. It's like a shadow cast here. Needs to be a little darker. Kind of anchor this in. Alright, let me give this a quick dry. Okay, so now a little bit more of some shading underneath this edge. Go back here, a little shading there. Not going to get too fussy with shingles and things. Might just give just a little inkling. So I think I would like this darker over here. So I'm carefully gonna, I feel I'd like to have more contrast there. So I'm gonna mix kind of a dark, semi-neutral green and carefully put some of this darker value along the edges here. I think I would like this darker. A little more contrast, I like that better. And we're gonna put a few touches in here. And bring some of that darker value in. Okay, so let's see, along with that, I'm going to take an 8 round brush. I'm going to splatter some darker green, valued green in here. Okay, I've dried this. One of the things I did when I was drying it is I softened this up a little bit because I wanted to feel like this foliage is breaking over, overlapping that right there. So I'm going to take a pickup eraser and remove a little bit of masking fluid I have. So now that gives me a little bit of texture, and I'm going to take a little bit of yellow green, a little bit. That's not quite what I'm after. Get some fresher color over here. There's my yellow. I'm going to take a little permanent green, maybe a little bit of quinacridone gold, and I'm going to just glaze over a few of these areas where I had some masking fluid, and it gives me a little bit of a, I call it a sparkle. But it gives me that light shape with a little bit of bright color on top of everything. And, you know, and I can remain transparent with my painting, which is what I like to, the way I like to paint. So I'm not splashing white paint on it and painting it, or opaque paint. I just plan in advance. And let's bring a little of that yellow green in here. Sharper edge on a couple spots. Okay, so now I'm going to take a rigger brush after I mix a little bit of color. I'm going to take some burnt orange, some blue in there. And let me get a little bit of my royal blue. Mix kind of a little cooler color and a warmer color. There we go. So I'm going to take a couple different riggers here. I'm going to take this rigger brush and just make a few marks. Not getting too, not going overboard with this. There's a nice cooler mixture. It's a little too dark. You know, you have breaks in it. You know, you don't want to show a tree that you see the trunk all the way up with no interruptions, without foliage, because you know foliage it goes 360 around the tree, and sometimes you'll see people paint a tree and the side facing you looks like it has no foliage on it. You see every branch and tree trunk. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, I've got another brush that I like to use, another rigger brush. And up here, we can see some branches. Not going overboard, just enough. Just put a few small, this particular rigger brush is really good at, it's just some small branches. This is a Princeton Aqua Elite number 8 rigger brush. I really like this. See, we'll put a few branches up in here. So when I'm making these, I lift my brush because again, it doesn't, rarely does a branch travel through a tree that doesn't have something overlapping it. Alright, so let's take just a little bit of something off my palette, something that's a darker middle value. Splatter a little bit more on there. Let me give this a dry. Okay, so I've dried it. I've put a mat around it so you can see it. So this is 8 by 10. The techniques I used were a frisket, liquid masking fluid, and then used some larger brushes to create some of these big areas, and threw some paint around to create some textures. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button.